Thank you for your interest, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about computational fluid dynamics, or CFD, and essentially how we use this in my lab associated with design, analysis, and really understanding more detailed information about fluid flows. Here's a few different simulations that I have. It's a wide different one of the nice things about CFD is it allows you to explore a wide range of applications. I'm just going to highlight this bottom left one. This is one of nitro charging on at Mach 2.5. So here's an overview of essentially my background. My name is Michael Kinzel. I'm assistant professor here at UCF in the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department. I've been here almost 2 years now. My background comes from a wide range of industry and research background. I spent around 10 years at Penn State's Applied Research Lab. That's a Navy UARC at Penn State, where a lot of the research I did focused on high-speed marine vehicles. So this is an image of a high-speed supercavitating torpedo. These are the kind of research areas that I worked in at Penn State. I also spent 2 years at Bechtel working primarily on some of the design and analysis of the Hanford waste treatment plant. And I also worked for about 1.5 years at GE Wind Energy, focusing more on blade design, both in the context of structural and aerodynamic design. Here at UCF, my teaching is primarily associated with aerodynamics, ranging from the undergrad to graduate courses. My education is graduate work at Penn State in aerospace engineering, and my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at Northern Arizona University. And here's a summary of some of my key achievements and accomplishments throughout my career. Some of the things that motivate me in research and teaching are listed here on this slide. Let's first talk about the teaching motivators. Here, I think that some of the things that I really try to aim for when I teach is get students to learn how to combine mathematics and physical concepts together to solve engineering problems. And I do this in a way that I also aim for them to understand some of the core physical aspects of the problems. So understand why aerodynamics works versus knowing how to apply the equations. And another thing I like to encourage in my coursework or courses is numerical methods. How do you apply computers to efficiently analyze a wide range of applications or problems or scenarios? My research motivators are really oriented around fluids being difficult, nonlinear type medias that lead to a lot of complex scenarios. I'm just going to give you 3 brief examples that are more general, and then we'll dig into some of the more detailed examples later. So this is one example of tornadoes. I just came off we've just finished a nice paper in Structure magazine where we were assessing how tornado loads using CFD. So tornadoes basically break apart buildings. And why do they break them apart? They apply very complex loads to the buildings. If you look at some of the design guides and criteria, what they do in the present is apply essentially stagnation pressures across the against the entire wall. Some of the details that CFD is able to extract is some of the underlying low pressures and high pressure regions, so we can get much more accurate understanding of the loading. And if you know the details of the loading, you know how to better design the structure to account for example, high local moments in any individual scenario. So you'd almost think about another problem that we looked at quite a bit is tankers, water tankers. So there's you can see here a water tanker that crashed. One of the reasons it causes it is you get these sloshing like loads. So this is a truck in motion, and you see all this sloshing. Water has a lot of inertia, and it has a tendency to give moments that can lead to turnovers of trucks. So what we're doing with the CFD here is actually analyzing the details of these motions and utilizing it to drive driver assist technologies so that drivers don't need to be as trained to drive with these complex loads. Another program that I've been looking at is roughness associated with additive manufacturing. You see right here, here's a additively manufactured propeller. These additively manufactured technologies are wonderful for aero and hydrodynamics. However, they leave these rough surfaces, which can sometimes yield poor performance. So if we dig into the very little details, you could see these rough features, and we're trying to, at this point, understand what are the flow details around these rough surfaces and how do they interact with the overall performance of these manufactured surfaces. Now let's move into a few current projects that I'm exploring. First project I'm going to talk about is an ONR funded project, which is a phase 2 SBIR. This is primed through Noise Control Engineering. It's a company out in Massachusetts. The objectives of this project are to make quiet and efficient sandblast nozzles so that people don't damage their ears after using these things for long periods of time. What we're using is CFD-driven design and optimization and rapid prototyping to really obtain the next generation nozzle. Some key aspects to the CFD is we're using two-phase compressible gas along with abrasives or solids and coupling this with aeroacoustic models. Just a comment, each one of these components is essentially an academic problem. And what we're doing here is already taking it beyond the academic aspect and bringing it into an optimization framework. Here's some early validation work we've had. And this is some of the earlier optimization procedures. What you can see here is we're cycling through all these different designs. You can see the mesh and the results changing for all these different optimization procedures. What we have here is velocity, which scales with sound, and abrasives velocity, which scales with essentially performance. And you can see that we were able to identify how well each one of these nozzles performs and ultimately find the most optimal nozzle. Some of the impact outcome achievements, I mean, again, these are thousands of designs we're evaluating. We're evaluating a lot of intricate technology or changes to these sandblast nozzles and getting to some very interesting, and we think there's going to be some very good results. We're also doing this, and just a brief comment, some of our initial results were already at 15 dB reduction in sound with a 15% increase in performance. And we think we're going to be able to beat this in our final designs. The second project I'm going to talk about is a NASA-funded project. It was a winner of the NASA New Frontiers program. So it's primed through APL's Civil Space Group, and we have a subcontract through Penn State who has a subcontract to them. What is the objective of this? This is a project called Dragonfly, and what it is an octocopter that they're sending out to Saturn's moon Titan. And this octocopter is going to explore the surface of this moon. So what we're doing here at UCF is exploring the fuselage design and some of the other subsystems. So if we look up here to the top right, this is the original design, more of a utility vehicle or a Jeep-like structure. And this is what we're taking it to, is kind of like a more high aerodynamic structure that we think is going to be better for extending range, better flight quality, and more flight time. So this is our Corvette variant of the Dragonfly. Some of the other things we're doing is analyzing thermal management systems within this, as well as we're exploring the concept of using CFD to test essentially controllers in the context of the real Titan environment. So this is an example of a quadcopter, and with a controller, we've actually programmed the controller into a CFD model that replicates this quadcopter or drone, and this is kind of the concept we're intending to explore for Dragonfly. A key outcome here is, going between this to this, we were able to obtain on the order of a 60% reduction in drag. And we're at the same time increasing the volume. So giving the scientists more space and more ability to put essentially some of the sensors or the equipment in other parts of the vehicle. The third project I'm going to talk about is the Fluidic Pathogen Transmission Reduction. This is an NSF-funded project through a rapid between Karim Ahmed and myself. This is a project where we're focusing on studying the fluid dynamics of sprays from coughs and sneezes, and looking at if there are ways to essentially reduce transmission by changing your saliva character. Interesting thing here is this is already in the context of this, we're developing collaborations with and potential funding with local companies, but also collaborations with other big name local or universities. We're actually going to start collaborating on our project with Princeton's rapid project in the upcoming month. So again, our objectives are to study droplet breakup dynamics associated with human coughs and sneezes. And we want to be able to relate these to airborne transmission of pathogens. And a key thing, we're doing this in the context of both experimental and numerical methods. So these are some simulations of human sneezes. All those yellow and white things are droplets, saliva and mucus that's coming out. Pretty sick stuff, right? So some of the stuff we're doing is studying how far they go, how long these droplets are sustained in the air, because these all correlate to transmissibility. And if you see this little diagram right here, this is a capability that we've been developing to study droplet impact on high-speed vehicles, but we also want to use it to study droplet breakup mechanisms in the context of viscoelastic fluids. This is a diagram showing the spray characteristics from a sneeze. Everything in red and black corresponds to this region on this plot. So this plot is a number of droplets versus part or droplet size. So you can see all the small drops are the ones that are pushing out further. Those are correlating to your social distancing 6 feet type metrics. These ones that fall, these are the ones that we want. So this is driving our understanding. How do we make these small droplets big and fall? Hence, one way to reduce social distancing. Just a quick overview of some impacts. What you can see here, these are experiments from Dr. Ahmed's group, but I think they're showing that our concept's very strong. So this is a baseline saliva or baseline sneeze. No modified saliva character. You see all these little white dots, they correspond to droplets and aerosols coming out from a saliva. What you see is a strong white region here, and it goes out high and far. If you add a face mask, this white region actually has fewer droplets, but more aerosols, and it's closer. Hence, it's one way to essentially reduce transmissibility. What we're looking in is adding thickening agents and binding agents using lozenges. If you add the thickening agent, what you get is lesser aerosols. They still travel as far as a baseline sneeze, but there's lesser. The white is much less dense, and you get these large droplets that fall to the ground, kind of designing our saliva to give us what we want. And then the other one we have is this binding agent. This binding agent it reduces the saliva. You can see there's virtually no saliva. Hence, the transmissibility is potentially significantly reduced. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about, perceived collaborations. What are ways that I could potentially, some ideas on how I could potentially collaborate. Obviously, with experimental CFD or experiment in CFD, there's always interest there, whether it be increasing the understanding, changing extrapolation to application, or just VNV. This is actually a sample VNV calculation that I had in the context of a nuclear regulatory type calculation. So that involves a lot of VNV process, and that's something that I've devoted quite a few years to. Also complex environmental design, things like the tornadoes, maybe hurricane loading, loading on any kind of civil structure, as well as renewable energies and dispersion of various things. So this is a picture of dispersion of soils as they and how they deposit on coral reefs. John Faith and Shamik and I have just put out a proposal studying that. Also, up here at the top right, simulation environment. I think CFD is going to be a technology that can help improve the realism of simulators. Probably not now, but in the next decade, they may become, it's very viable that they're real time. And that may be one idea. Some of the work I've done in the past was exploring how helicopters interact with a complex boundary layer or wind flow around ships and interfacing with simulators on that end. There are a lot of other ideas on how that can happen. And lastly, biomedical and bioengineering applications. Okay. Lastly, one thing I have to conclude with is this, a lot of this work is developed with a lot of what I would say is good talent that I have found and I've been lucky to find here at UCF. One, Dr. Fontes, he's a postdoc hired through the P3 program. He has been phenomenal in helping me get a lot of things done. All these PhD students as well. They're all very strong PhD students, and they're all doing a lot of very interesting work and getting things done. And then lastly, our master students and the undergrad researchers. They're doing a lot of very interesting work, exploring things from aerodynamics around bikes to parts of the Falcon 9. So it's a fun group that we have here, and I have to say it's been it's been a fun time working with them all. And they really need a lot of they need to get a lot of credit for a lot of these results. So that's pretty much it for my talk. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is michael.kinzel@ucf.edu. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk hopefully to hear from you soon.